Howdy, if you are watching this tutorial, that means you need a little bit of help or review with solving for a variable, or it's also called isolating a variable. So let's look at an equation first. We have 3x plus 2 equals 8. And I want to solve or isolate the variable. So when I'm looking at this, the first thing I want to do is find the variable. The variable is right here. It's an x. Okay? So that means everything else besides the x has got to go away. It's got to go to the other side because we need the x to be by itself. We need it to be alone. And alone from what? That just means it should be the only thing on one side of the equal sign. So what I see standing in the way of the x being alone is I see this 3 and I see this 2. Okay? When we see a 3 and an x right next to each other, we know that those are being multiplied, and that is the very, very, very last thing that you break up. This 3 and this x, these guys are going to move together until the very end when they have to split apart. Okay? So we do need to get rid of that 3, but it will be the last thing we do because it is attached to the variable. It's attached to the x. Okay, so let me actually write this equation again since I have written all over the page. We need to solve for the variable, so we're going to be solving for x, and we know we got to move the 3 and the 2. Moving them, we can't just erase them. We actually have to move them to the other side. Okay? And the way we do that is by doing the opposite math that we see on the side they're currently on. Okay? So, for example, we talked about we know the 3 and the 2 need to move. The 3 is going to be moved last because it's attached to the variable. It's attached to the x. So the first thing that I'm going to do is move this plus 2. So in math, to get rid of things, we do the opposite of what is currently being done. So if I have 2 cookies and I want to get rid of them, I would do the opposite to get rid of them. I would subtract them. I have them, which is like a plus 2. So to get rid of them, I would subtract those 2 cookies from myself. Okay, but we're talking about math. So let's look at these numbers. We have a plus 2. So to get rid of it, we're going to subtract 2. And in math, if we do something to one side, we do it to the other, and that means the other side of the equal sign. So if it helps you to bring down the equal sign, just to make sure you're subtracting on the left side of it and on the right, then go ahead and do that. Okay, I didn't touch the 3x, so it just comes down. A plus 2 and a minus 2 cancel each other out. And then 8 minus 2 is 6. I'm getting closer, but I'm still not there because the x, the variable, is not by itself. So I see that it is right next to a 3. We know that when a coefficient, a number in front, and a variable are right next to each other, it means they're being multiplied. So the 3 and the x are being multiplied. So to get rid of that 3, I do the opposite. And the opposite of multiplying is dividing. We've talked about fractions or division. So typically the way you lay this out is a fraction. This shows 3 is being divided by 3. That's the only way to get rid of it is to divide because it was being multiplied. The opposite is division, so I divide to get rid of it. But if I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. Okay. So 3 over 3, that is the same as 1. And then we have x. And 6 over 3 is 2. And 1x is really just x. So that means x is 2. Okay? if I went a little fast for you on this, my suggestion would be to pause the video, make sure you understand anything, or even go back and rewatch it before we move on to the next one. All right, let's do another example. So this one's going to look similar. 3x minus 2 equals 7. Okay, so we are solving for the variable or isolating the variable. My variable is x right here. So we need to get this by itself. So before x is by itself, we have a 3 we have to get rid of and a minus 2 that we have to get rid of. Okay, we are going to get rid of the minus 2 first because remember I said anything attached to the variable is we're going to get rid of it last. So the 3 and the x are right next to each other. The 3, we do have to get rid of it, but we're going to get rid of it very last. Okay, so when I look at this equation, I have a minus 2, and in math, to get rid of something, we do the opposite. So the opposite of minus 2 would be a plus 2. But in math, if we do it to one side of the equation, we have to do it to the other. It would help if I did the right thing, goodness. Sorry about that. If we do it to one side of the equation, we have to do it to the other. Okay. So let's see. We didn't touch the 3x. So that just comes down. Minus 2 and plus 2 cancel each other out. The equal sign just comes down. And 7 plus 2 is 9. Now, we're still not done. The x, the variable, is not by itself. It's being multiplied by a 3. So to get rid of it, we need to divide. Divide by what we're getting rid of. We need to get rid of the 3, so we divide by a 3. But if we do it to one side, we have to do it to the other. Okay? So 3 over 3 is 1. And 9 over 3 is 3. And we know math. 1x is the same as just x. Okay? Pause the video. Make sure you understand what I did. If you need to see it again, go back before we do another problem. All right, so we have another problem here. So we're still trying to get the variable by itself. My variable is x. So everything on the left side of the equal sign beside that x has got to go. So this negative 3 has to go away. And this minus 2. Okay, let me rewrite it. Okay, this time a negative 3 is right next to the variable. It's the coefficient for the variable. We get rid of it last. So we're going to get rid of this minus 2 first. The way we get rid of a minus 2 is by doing the opposite, which would be adding 2. If we add 2 to one side of the equal sign, we have to add 2 to the other. Okay, negative 3x we didn't touch. So we're just going to bring it down. Minus 2 plus 2 cancels out. Our equal sign comes down. And negative 1 plus 2 is 1. Okay, so now I need to get rid of this negative 3. So I need to divide by 3? No, I don't need to get rid of a 3. I need to get rid of a negative 3. So with division, you're not doing the opposite sign. You're doing the exact number that you need to get rid of. Okay, so let me explain that. Up here, it looks like I had a minus 2. I did a plus 2. So I have a lot of students that want to come down here and say, okay, well, it's a minus 3, so let me divide by 3. No, you have to divide by exactly what you see. Okay, so if I see a negative 3 and I need to get rid of it, I need to divide by a negative 3. Okay. Those cancel out to be 1. We talked about this in class. When you have a negative in either the numerator or denominator, it's the whole fraction that's negative. And we know that 1x is really just x. Okay, I want to pause right here and go back to this step. And I want to show you why you have to divide by a negative 3. So if you just come in here and divide by 3, you end up with a negative x. We don't want a negative x. We just want x. So with multiplying and dividing, you have to get rid of that sign. Let's do one more. Okay, here I have a negative 5x minus 12 equals negative 2. I need to solve for the variable, which is x, which means this negative 5 has to go, and this minus 12. We know we get rid of the negative 5 last because it's attached to the variable. These are a team. They stay a team or a pair up until the very end. Okay, let me rewrite it so it's neat. So I have a negative 12. So to get rid of it, I do the opposite. Okay, the opposite of a negative 12 is a positive 12. Okay. So remember, with addition and subtraction, you are doing the opposite sign. If I add 12 to one side, I have to add it to the other side. I did not touch the negative 5x, so I just bring that down. That cancels. And negative 2 plus 12 is 10. Okay, so here I have negative 5x. They're being multiplied. So to get rid of that negative 5, I have to divide. I have to divide by the number that I'm trying to get rid of. I'm trying to get rid of a negative 5, so I have to divide by a negative 5. Negative and a negative make a positive, and 5 over 5 is 1. Negative, remember, use your kissy face. Negative and a positive make a negative, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. We know that 1x is just x. Okay, so rewatch this video. These are all concepts that you should have mastered before 8th grade, but I know students typically have trouble with this, so please watch this video again if you need to. You have plenty of time in your day. Really try to master this concept. For those of you that want to try to practice on your own before we take it even a step further for 8th grade math, I will give you a couple problems in just a second. Copy them down, and then I will actually show you the work for them in this same video, so then you can kind of check your answers at the end and make sure you know how to do it. All right, here are 4 practice problems. You can go ahead and pause this video in just a second, copy these down, try to solve for the variable x by yourself. I could have used any variable, so actually, let's on number 4, instead of solving for x, let's solve for z. It doesn't matter, it's the same idea. Go ahead, try to work through these on your own. And then when you worked through them, come back and hit play, and then you can see my work and check my work and your work against each other. Make sure we got the same answers. All right, hopefully you have the same answers as me. If you aren't sure of anything, go ahead, send me an email. I'd be happy to try to explain where you messed up. It'd be helpful if you send a picture of your work so I can see kind of where your mistake was. But go ahead, pause this, and check your work with mine.